So again, thank you all for being here. You picked a great night to come. We've got three performances coming up. So we're going to be starting off with Eleanor Clement Glass. She's been a storyteller in Oakland Public Schools with the Asian Art Museum. She's told her stories all over the Bay Area, and tonight we have her here with her piece, um, Mother's Day, Mother's Way. And here is Eleanor.
Good evening. Now, as we get older, we people of a certain age start thinking about what's going to happen to my family after I die. Can I affect how they distribute my things? Can I control how they're going to behave, how they're going to treat one another? Well, mother. Uh-oh. My mother, Gloria Valdecaño Santiago Clement, said with an emphatic, "Of course I can." And then she set out to do that. Now, she was a petite Filipino woman, and she had honeyed skin and hair, long hair down her back. She was called Lola by her family and our friends, and Lola means grandmother in Tagalog, which is the Filipino language. She was a Technicolor fashionista. She could wear the hell out of a pair of red leather pants with maybe a matching red leather jacket to a bridge game, or a beautiful blue chiffon dress with crystal embroidery and pearl embroidered at maybe one of her Famco galas, Filipino Americans of Marin County. She loved to dress up. Here she was wearing a beautiful designer gown at an Army officer's fashion show, officer's wife's fashion show. Now, what was exciting about that was that Daddy bought that dress for her after the fashion show. They met in the Philippines in World War II, right at the end of World War II, so my mother was a war bride. She loved color. And in her dance troupe, her Filipino dance troupe, she loved making and wearing the beautiful folk styles of the Filipinos. This is one of the dances they did where they balanced candles on their heads and hands while they danced. She also did the hula, and she was particularly popular for anniversary parties with her friends because she loved to do the Hawaiian wedding song. Oops. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble here.
Is your screen share working okay, Eleanor? I had a little trouble on the settings here. Sorry, everybody.
Yes,
I'm going to take you off Spotlight real quick. Sorry, folks. I'm going to and see if we can tweak this and restart.
Stop screen is not showing.
Let's see.
Did you see the pictures?
No, let me reset this.
Okay.
Try it now.
Can you see pictures now?
Is it allowing you to share?
I just put it on share screen, so can you see it?
No.
Okay, let's see. Can you see that picture?
Let me see.
I might not have permission to share them right now.
Yeah, I've given you permission. I'm just let's see. Yeah. All right. Try it now.
Okay. I think I'm in share screen now.
Okay, hit stop share.
I'm looking for that now. Okay, that's one of the problems. Stop share is not showing.
Um,
It was doing it before.
yeah.
Sorry.
Let me see. Okay, I'm going to start a share screen just for a second here. And then now I'm going to stop it. So try hitting share screen again.
Okay.
And is it allowing you to select? There you go. Now you're up.
All right. So I'm going to go back to my mother, Gloria Baldacano Santiago Clement, was a petite Filipino woman with honeyed skin and beautiful long hair that she wore in a signature bun. She was a Technicolor fashionista. She could wear the hell out of a red leather pants and matching red leather jacket, maybe to one of her bridge clubs, or a beautiful peacock blue chiffon evening gown with a silver and pearl embroidery, maybe for one of her FAMCO galas, Filipino Americans of Marin County. She loved color, and she loved dressing up. Here she is at an officer's wife fashion show. What was exciting about that was they were in Bangkok, Thailand, and my dad ended up buying that for Christmas and surprised her. My mother and father met in the Philippines at the end of World War II. My mom was a war bride. She loved to dance, and one of the things that she did was with a Filipino dance troupe. They made colorful folk costumes to wear when they danced throughout the Bay Area. She loved to do the hula, and her friends loved to invite her to do the Hawaiian wedding song hula for their anniversaries. My mother delighted in having her family over, 4 children, 6 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. She loved to feed her brood. We had incredible feasts. On my dad's side of the family, we might have collard and mustard and kale, greens that were cooked in a ham hock sauce. And then we also had buttery cornbread or barbecued ribs. And on my mom's side, we would have Filipino soul food, chicken adobo with chicken, tender morsels marinated in a soy sauce base. Or lumpia, which is like egg rolls but tighter with little meat and vegetables inside. And oh, did we love pancit. That's vermicelli noodles with little bits of shrimp and pork and beef and carrots and cabbage. I can smell it now. We had the most incredible feasts every time we got together. And my mom loved to dance. Do you know, when we were at our dance, in her home, we learned to do the tinikling. The tinikling is the national dance of the Philippines. And when we had parties, we would pull out the bamboo poles, and 2 people would jump on the ends of it and start with a nice solid beat. Other people, we would start jumping in and out of the poles and around. Beautiful dance, unless you were trying to do it and my 2 brothers got on the edges of the poles, and when they were clapping, they would try to grab hold of your ankle. So we learned to jump higher if they were doing the poles. Well, she reigned supreme at family gatherings. And one day, one Mother's Day, she met us at the door. And she had bright colored Post-its. And she handed one to my brothers, Carl and Ray, me, and my sister Donna. She told us they were for games. Well, we loved games, and we were really famous for trash talking during games during one of our family gatherings. She said, go in the living room, and we all got there and waited expectantly for her to tell us what game we were going to play. And she started off. Now, you all know I do not want you to fight when I die. Oh, Lola, Lola. We didn't want to talk about that. She said, wait, I want you to put your name on a Post-it and Just then, my brother Carl threw the Post-it over at my brother Ray. He shot another one back at Carl, and that started an instantaneous Post-it throwing war. My mother took off her slipper and she swatted Carl on the arm. "You're bastos!" means you're bad. My sister was yelling la 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 until my mother pointed at her and said, "You're bastos too. Now stop." Well, my mother just started to pick up the Post-its and put them in our hands. And she said, "Now listen, I know this is uncomfortable for you, but your dad and his sister and Chloe were close when they were growing up, just like you. But then when Granny and Pop-Pop died, they went back to Philadelphia to sell the little row house and do the business. And then they had words. And do you know, they never spoke one word to each other again." Now, this was my mother's greatest fear, not having a close family. And she was determined that was not going to happen to her. So she said again, "You take a pen and you write your name on a Post-it. Then you take that Post-it and you put it upon anything in the house that you want to have after I die. That after I die, unless it is promised." Now, we knew what was promised to each of us. For me, it was this beautiful bar. Now, this bar my mom and dad bought from Hong Kong when they were stationed in Bangkok, Thailand. And it was black lacquer with gold and ivory figures all over it. And it had all these little cabinets for drinks and glasses. We loved that bar, my mom and I. And the irony is, my mother did not drink, and I rarely drink. But we both loved that bar, and I knew that it was promised to me. Okay, if I could, I would stop the screen and you would stop seeing that bar. Okay. Okay, well, let me see if I can get out of this. Okay. So we started with what was promised, and we knew not to put a Post-it on any of those things. We took our Post-its, we looked at each other incredulously. Is this really happening? But my mom just said, "Ready, set, go!" And we ran all over the house. We were scurrying around, putting things on pictures and on chairs, and our families were cheering for us. My son said, Mom, put a Post-it on that Ming tree." My mom made the most gorgeous jeweled miniature trees, and I put a Post-it on it. And then my daughter said, Mom, put a Post-it on that chair. I really like that chair." I heard my husband say, "Honey, your brother just put a Post-it on that picture from Germany that you like." And I ran over to the picture and I put my own Post-it right over his. We ran around the house, and when we got winded, we sat down on the couch. And my mom said, "Is that all? Is that all that you want?" And we would be up again, just to be sure we had checked everything. Well, at one point, my mom said, "Okay, stop, time to eat." And we looked around in awe. It looked like it had been snowing multicolored Post-its all over my mother's house. Well, after we ate, my mom took her Post-it, her clipboard, and she walked with us all around the house, with us putting down our names on everything that we had selected. And then 84, when she was 84, my mother passed. And the four of us sat in her living room and we said, let's make up 3 guidelines for how we're going to distribute her things. 1, if you gave it to her, then you had first dibs. 2, if it was promised to you, it was yours. And 3, if it had a post-it on it, you knew that you had first choice. So we went through each room and we looked at what was promised and what was given to us. We also let our family put post-its on things that they wanted that we didn't already choose. And then with the rest of the things, we chose what things would go to consignment stores, what things would go to Goodwill, and what would go to the dump. With the money that we made from consignment and her beautiful clothes, we had a special kitty, and her kids have all Sibs brunches. And we do that. Sorry. Okay. And the 4 of us go out to brunch once a quarter, and we talk with each other about our lives. We catch up, we laugh, we reminisce, and we plan future family gatherings, even on Zoom. I know my mother would have loved that. You did it, Mom. I know. I told you that I would. Ini ibikita. Well, we love you too, Mom. Ini ibikita.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. And apologies for the tech problems. That was all on me, but enjoyed that very much. So thank you. And we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the evening. So if anyone has questions, by all means, you can put them in the chat. And 'cause I have a few myself, so get ready. But we're going to be moving on. Our second performer, Brother Ben, he's an experienced storyteller with the StageBridge program, and he's told stories all over the Bay Area. He works with both folk tales and personal stories, and he's going to be sharing one with us tonight. So take it away, Ben. And oh, Ben, I'm sorry. I did not properly unmute you. Hang on. That was my bad. Okay, try it now. There you go. And you're on.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to tell you a personal story. Happened a long time ago, but it's still close to me. And somehow in this day and age, it seems even more relevant than it was back then. It was actually one of the proudest moments of my life. I was in elementary school in the 6th grade. I went to school in San Francisco. My school was Irving M. Scott, and it was located in the Dog Patch section of San Francisco on Tennessee Street, right off of 22nd Street and 3rd. It was a gritty, semi-industrial part of the town. We had lots of factories, railroad yards, shipyards, and it was a working class community. The school was predominantly Black with a smattering of white and Mexican kids, but primarily Black. It was a good school. And I was in the 6th grade when I was promoted to be the captain of the Traffic Boys. One of the proudest moments of my life. And I was a 5th grader when I joined the Traffic Boys. And I came to the notice of my elementary school principal, Mrs. Owens. She was a rather large white woman, with bluish white hair and big owl glasses, a very imposing figure. She was a strict disciplinarian. She did not suffer fools well, especially clowns and people that did not follow the protocol of the school. And if there was ever anyone that got out of line, she would come out of her office, go into the classroom, grab a student by their ear, and pull them off to her office. And that was one of the worst fears anyone in the school had, is to be taken into Mrs. Owens's office. So I was one of her favorites. In fact, not only was I on the traffic boy squad and the captain, but she even gave me the honor of raising the flag of the flagpole in the morning and lowering the flag at the end of the day. And she told me, Ben, this is a great honor. This flag means so much. People have died for this flag. Even some of your people, some of the colored boys fought in World War I and World War II. Of course, I knew all about that because I had uncles that fought in the war. And she says, whatever you do, make sure that that flag never touches the ground when you raise it or lower it. And I said, yes, Miss Owens, I will never let that flag touch the ground. And she showed me how to fold it. And so that was my job. I would get to school early in the morning and I would ring that flag up the flagpole. Then I would summons the rest of the traffic boys and we would station them on all four corners that surrounded the school. And they all reported to me. And we had a drill. We would walk around the block and I would assign, you take this corner. Johnny, you take that corner. Henry, you got that corner. And then I would patrol the whole block and make sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to do and getting the kids across the street safe and sound. Because in that area, as I mentioned earlier, it was light industry. We had lots of cars and trucks running back and forth between those intersections. And we had several kids who were hit by cars, some of them seriously injured. And so Mrs. Owens took seriously the crossing guard's responsibilities and made sure that we wanted to keep our accidents down because we were in a heavily trafficked zone. The other thing that was happening around that time, it was a very exciting time, as I said, there was a citywide competition, a pageant. I call it a jamboree because I was in a Boy Scout and Cub Scouts as well. And that jamboree pageantry was taking place at Kezar Stadium. And it was a drill. And we would drill and we would march and the whole bit. And whoever was the best in the drill, they would come home with all of these ribbons. And I was in charge of getting our troop ready for competition. And we would do drills in the morning and in the afternoon, walking around the block. And I would line them up in formation and we would march. 10 shot, hop, 2, 3, 4, hop, 2, 3, 4, reverse march. Attention, they would salute, boom. And it was wonderful. Things were going well for me. My mother was so proud of me. My father, all he wanted to know is, are you getting paid, boy? About time for you to get a job. My mother said, no, this is great for him, Benjamin. This is going to teach him leadership skills and prepare him for junior high school. As I said, things were going good. I was Mrs. Orange's pet. And not only that, but she would send me to pick up her lunch every single day, Monday through Friday. She ate the same thing, canned sliced peaches and cottage cheese. And she gave me a quarter every day. So as I said, things were really good. I was looking forward to the jamboree. I was looking forward to the end of school. The family was going to go back to Louisiana on a family reunion, and I was looking forward to transitioning from elementary school to middle school. But then one day when I was making the rounds, I saw one of the kids jaywalk. He cut across the intersection, and I yelled at him, "Hey, you, get back on that curve and cross through the crosswalk." And he turned around and I saw who it was. It was Eddie Zeno. He was one of the few white kids in the school. He came from a large family, and he was a tough kid. He had about 12 or 13 sisters and brothers. And everyone gave that family a wide berth because they were known as troublemakers. But I was in uniform with my belt and my cap and my badge. I had nothing to fear. And I said, "Get back on the sidewalk and cross through the crosswalk." He leered at me and said, "Who do you think you are?" I said, "I am the captain of the crossing guards." And he laughed. "You, captain? You look like a smokestack to me." And then he called me the N-word. Ah, I was hurt. I was furious. And then I could hear the kids behind me woofing, "Woo, oh, you gonna take that?" And I waved them off, "Quiet." And I said, "If you don't come back over here and cross, I'm gonna report you to Mrs. Owens in the morning." And he laughed. "Go ahead." And then he gave me the finger. Boom! And he marched off. I was stunned. No one had ever called me the N-word. No one had ever made any racial slurs towards me, especially during the time when I was in uniform. He had questioned my authority and totally swept it away. The kids was going to say, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" I said, "He's in trouble. I'm going to report him to Mrs. Owens tonight, not tomorrow." And at the end of my shift, I marched up to the school, didn't even bother to take the flag down. Told the secretary I needed to talk to Mrs. Owens. It was a very serious incident that happened on the corner of 22nd and Tennessee. And I wanted to file a report. And we had these incident infraction reports. And she let me in Mrs. Owens' office. She's sitting back there. "Where's the flag, Ben?" I said, "Mrs. Owens, I just had to come in here and tell you. Eddie Zeno, he jaywalked across the street on 22nd and 3rd Street. And when I told him to come back, he called me a smokestack and then he called me the N-word." And she said, "Settle down, Ben. Just take it easy." I said, but, and I could barely talk. I was just so flustered. I said, I want to write him out. I want to fill out an incident report. And I got all the witnesses and all the kids saw it. And she said, "Well, Ben, that won't be necessary." I said, "What?" "Let me handle this." "What?" "Ben, let me handle this. Where's the flag?" "It's still on the pole." "Go get the flag. Bring it to my office." And I looked at her and she said, "Go get the flag." I felt like I had shrunk. And I dragged myself across the office. And as I was about to open the door, she said, "Ben?" I thought she had changed her mind. I said, "Yes." She says, "You need to get thicker skin." And I slumped again. And I walked out her office. I walked to the flagpole. I let the flag down slowly, and I let the flag touch the ground. I balled it up, and as I was walking back to her office, I took off my cap, I took off the badge off my belt, I rolled everything up in one bundle. I sat it on the secretary's desk, and I told her, "You tell Mrs. Owens I quit." She said, "You what?" Tell her I, what? Tell her I quit. I pivoted, walked home. My mom said, "Why are you home so late, son? And what's wrong?" I'd been crying. I cried all the way home. But I didn't tell her what happened. Didn't want my mom up at the school. No kids wanted their moms to come up to the school. I kept it to myself. And so graduated, or matriculated actually, moved on to middle school. Eddie Zeno came to the school practically the whole sixth grade. Went to the school a couple of blocks up the hill on Potrero Hill. I kept my distance from him. He continued to be a bully. But then, one day, a new black boy came to school. And Eddie had to test him. And he called Jason Lewis the N-word. Jason said, "We'll get you at the end of school." And I said, "I got to see this." And so I hung around at the end of school, and a big circle formed around them, and there was a fight. It was a furious fight. And Jason got Eddie around the neck, put him in a headlock, and flipped him down to the ground and got on top of him and started hitting him left and right. And I was saying, "That's right, man. Get him, get him." But then all of a sudden, Eddie reached in his pocket and pulled out a knife and stabbed Jason Lewis 3 swift stabs. Boom, 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 in the stomach. And everybody fell back. Oh! And he kicked Jason off the top of him, and blood just flowed from Jason's front of his shirt. Kids were running everywhere, and about that time, the custodian came out, Mr. Cavagner, and pushing his cart, and he saw what was happening, and he said, "Go get the principal, tell her to call the ambulance." And he told, "You kids get back." And he grabbed a rag and he started pressing it on his shirt, and we were all startled. And the principal came out and told us to go home, go home. As we were walking home, we could hear the sirens coming up. And I walked home by myself thinking, wow, what did I just witness? Didn't know if Jason was going to live. And then I thought about that incident on the corner of 22nd and Tennessee when Eddie called me a smokestack and the N-word. And when Mrs. Owens told me, "I'll handle this, Ben. And oh, by the way, Ben, get thicker than skin." So that night I went home. Again, didn't tell my parents anything because we didn't like to share things with our parents and get them upset and have them coming to school. We kids handled it. Our parents had too much trouble trying to put food on the table. And so I had homework that night. I had a writing assignment. In fact, I had to do a book report. Never will forget it. Jack London's Call of the Wild. I finished the book report, and I flipped over the tablet and I said, "I'm going to write Miss Owens a note. And on the way to school, I'm going to deliver it to her." And I wrote down in bold letters, "Dear Mrs. Owens, Eddie Zeno stabbed Jason Lewis, 3 times in the stomach. They took him to San Francisco General Hospital. I hope he has thick skin. Sincerely, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Wow. Um, Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I have some questions for you. Would love to hear more about the piece and some of where you went with that. And I think the audience would as well. But what a wonderful, powerful piece. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So we have one final piece for the night. Our last performer, Gerry Keenan, she's a veteran of the EPIC program with Stagebridge and the Contra Costa Tail Spinners. She's told stories all around the Bay Area, and she has one for us tonight called The Tinsel Tree. And it's over to you, Gerry.
Thank you. Following Ben and Eleanor is really a hard task. I'll do my best. But when I was 5, my family, and family I'll describe as my mother, father, and my little sister, who was not quite 4. We moved to the projects. They looked like army barracks, and they were kind of dark green with gray cement on the bottom, and then they were placed, the buildings were placed in kind of a big U, and it was all cement in front. But in the back, there were fields of weeds, and I love those weeds. And I spent all kinds of time in the weeds, and I found actually one day a little pile of rocks, and there was also a board like it had come off of a piece of a picket fence or something. And I very carefully picked up those rocks and made a little wall, and I put the board next to it, and then I tamped down the grass with my feet, and that became my cave. And I would go to my cave and just spend hours there. Now, we moved to the projects during the holidays. I'm holidays, Thanksgiving through New Year's. And my mom was really tense. And the reason she was tense was because my father was a binge drinker, and the holidays would set him off. And it didn't matter what holiday it was, it could be Valentine's Day, but the thing about it was he would turn from a very nice man to a very vicious and vile, very violent. So, but this period of time, for some reason, he wasn't drinking, and it was really nice. And the holidays, they were, I guess, what I always thought holidays should be like. And then one day he came home and he had 2 orange crates, and he stood them on it. He papered them with crepe paper that had like bricks on it. And he told us it was a fireplace and we could hang our stockings there for Santa Claus. Well, Christmas wasn't such a big deal in our house. And what we did at Christmas time was that my sister Noni and I would put out a plate with 2 cookies, and we put out 2 of my dad's old socks. And when we'd wake up in the morning, the stocking would be filled, and there would be a Christmas tree that Santa had decorated and in the living room. Now the stocking always had the same thing in it. Had an orange in the toe, 2 walnuts, some sticky candy, and a candy cane. And it took me until I was, a parent myself to think about those oranges and realize what a big deal that was for my mother and father, because they were really thinking about their childhood during the Depression in Chicago in the middle of winter. Those oranges must have been like nuggets of gold. And what do you think I put my kids in sunny California? They got oranges in their stockings. And the Christmas tree that Santa would put up, well, Santa put the Christmas tree up because my father would wait until Christmas Eve and all the Christmas lots were closed, and he would go out and he would get a free Christmas tree, and he'd bring the Christmas tree home, and my mother and father would decorate it. And the Christmas tree to me was Christmas. I mean, and I don't know if you remember tinsel, but they used to have old-fashioned tinsel, not this plastic stuff you put on trees, but tinsel was about the length of a piece of fettuccine and silver, and it was soft. And you hung the pieces of tinsel over the branch, and you could put 2 or 3 on a branch. And what I loved was that it would reflect the lights on the Christmas tree. It was also kind of move when you walk by it. And, you know, who knows what makes a kid love something, but I'd have been absolutely satisfied with that Christmas tree as Christmas. So that very Christmas Eve was about 10:30, 11 o'clock, I guess. And I woke up. For some reason, I walked out in the living room, and there were my mother and father decorating the tree. My mother saw me and she said, oh, Gerry, honey, Santa Claus told us that he was really busy and he asked us to decorate the tree, but now don't tell your sister. Well, I had doubts about Santa Claus, you know, but I would have believed their story except that they were eating his cookies. And I thought, oh boy. So I went to bed. We got up the next morning. Sure enough, there's our stocking all full, and there's the decorated tree. And there was a doll under the tree for Noni and a microscope for me. And it wasn't one of these little phony plasticky things. It was the real deal. It was a microscope. And the day was like a Christmas day that I used to think other people had. It was really nice. My mother was cooking in the kitchen and my father wasn't drinking. And what he did was he set up the microscope and he showed us what salt looked like under there, what sugar looked like. He caught a fly and he tweaked off the head and he showed us the compound eyes under there. And, you know, it was just a very, very nice day. The next morning, my mother and sister and I were sitting having breakfast. And my father came crashing through the door and he was bleary-eyed, he was stumbling drunk, and he went into the living room and he knocked the Christmas tree over, at which point my mother and Noni and I jumped up. Noni ran into the bedroom and I ran down out of the apartment down to my little cave in the weeds. Now, it was granted that my father, I mean, this was another binge, and I don't know whether I said it or not, but he would really change from a nice man to a very violent man. And sometimes he would be gone for 2 days, sometimes he would be gone for a week. You just never knew. So what I did was, I was very careful, and every day I went down to my cave. And one day, and you know, in children's time, I'm guessing this was about 3 days after the fact. And I went down to into my cave, and I found a Christmas tree, a tiny one. It was actually only came up to my nose. It was still green, and it had a stand on the bottom, and it had tinsel on it. Not a lot, but it had some tinsel on it. So I took the tree and I dragged the tree over to my cave and I put it right next to the little kind of wall I built and the piece of wood. And I love that tree. And I can remember thinking, well, maybe somebody else has thrown away some trees and there might be some more tinsel. So like this little feral kid, little feral girl, I ran all around through the grass to the back of all these big apartment buildings, to the trash and the dumpsters. And sure enough, there were some trees and some had tinsel on it. And I would very carefully take the tinsel off the tree and I would hang it over my finger and close my fingers, and I'd walk very carefully back to my tree. And lo and behold, what happened was that I had enough tinsel that I had at least one piece on every single branch of the tree. And you know, that tree was just soulless for me. And I'm guessing this went on for maybe 4 or 5 days. And about the 5th day, I went out to see my tree, and it was gone. It was gone. I mean, all that was there was a broken branch and some little pieces of tinsel. And I looked the same way you look. You know something should be there, but it's not. And I bent down and I picked up the tinsel, and I can remember rolling it into a ball into my hand. And I wasn't a kid who cried, but I could feel my eyes start to sting. You know how your lip starts to quiver, and when those hot. And I stood there, and then I started to run. And I was running through those weeds, and there were so many tears that I couldn't see, and I kept falling. And I'd get up and I'd run, and I ran and I ran and I ran. Finally, I kind of came to the edge of where this field of weeds was, and there was an old white house that was all rickety and broken down. And next to it was a carport leaning to the side, no car. And then next to that was a trailer. Now, not the kind of trailer, it was like a tiny travel trailer. And it was teardrop shaped, and it had teardrop shaped windows on both sides. And I saw that it had a chair and a little table in it. And I crawled up onto the top of the trailer, and I hung my legs down one side, and I hung my legs down the other side, and I kicked out all the windows. And I sat there for just a bit of time, I think afraid that somebody was going to see me, and I went back home. Now, because a binge doesn't last forever, my father would be very contrite when his drinking spree was over, and he would bring little things home. And one day, I was in the living room, and he came to the door and said, "Hey, Gerry, I've got something, and go get your microscope." Well, all I could see that he had was a little jar of water with like brown water. We put the microscope down, and he spent a lot of time setting it up. And he put a drop of water on the slide, and he put a slide cover on it. And then he fiddled around, and finally he said, "Okay, come and see." I thought, well, water. And I looked, and I was really just stunned. There were the most beautiful, magical little creatures in there. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And there were about a dozen, all shapes, and they were swimming and eating. And because of the way the light was coming up under them, they were all outlined in silver. I mean, I could hardly breathe. They were so beautiful. Daddy, what are those? "Oh, those are the kind of little animals that live in pond water. You can only see them through a microscope." Well, he left the microscope with me. Left the jar of water with me. And for the next several days, I had that little jar of water until the air and the water ran out and the things died. But I spent hours and hours, and I even tried to draw them. And we didn't have much. We had very little of anything. But because my father had graduated from the Art Institute of Chicago, we had lots of paper and pencils and colored inks. And now here I am, 70 years later. And what happened to that little feral girl that was running around in the weeds? Well, I took her and I put her in my heart. And I've kept her very, very safe. And she is there. And she has a pair of eyes, and they're different from my eyes. And when life is really bad, unfortunately, I'll start looking at the world through her eyes. And what I see, I see my mother dying very soon after I turned 10. I see all the foster families. And then I take over and I say, hey, wait. Let's look through my eyes. Let's see through my eyes. And when I look through my eyes, I see 3 wonderful grown kids. I see a degree in biology and a degree in studio arts. I see 2 successful, for me, careers. And I see a whole cadre of friends, just wonderful friends. And every once in a while, one of these friends will say, hey, you know what, Gerry? Most of the time, when kids grow up the way you grew up, they don't have the kind of ending that you had. What happened? What was the difference? And I look at them and I say, do you believe in blessings? Well, I was blessed with the magic of pond water. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerry. Thank you so much for that. That's an amazing story to tell. Now, I'm going to unmute our artists here so that we can talk here. And because I know I have a couple of questions for all of you, and for you in the audience, if you have them, please feel free to throw them into the chat. I'd like to start with you, Gerry, if I could. Something I feel
Sure.
that all 3 pieces to me were one thing they had in common to me is they're about hope, hope in the face of a mother contemplating her death, and Ben, this adversary, capital A adversary. I don't know, that word feels too small for what you encountered. And then Gerry, these dire circumstances you describe for your character. And so what I wanted to ask for you is there very much seemed to be this sense of wonder and awareness of magic and broader horizons in this character, in this story, who is you. Would you say that is something you held? I mean, that it just remarkable.
I am going to say yes. I mean, I used to get report cards home that would say, if Miss Keenan didn't daydream so much, she would do better. And I have always, I mean, I believe very strongly in something I call the littles. And those littles are those things that make, for me, life important. I mean, they can be as small, and I'm going to sound very maudlin now, but they can be as small as waking up and noticing that there is a spider web that is full of dew on the back, and taking that in. And sometimes when I do, I do photography and I paint also. I'll draw it, or I'll photograph it, or I'll paint it. But I can hold that. With me. And that's kind of the way I've lived my life.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that as you were telling the story, as you described that this cave you built, this sanctuary you built, and the way you, as a child, you latched on to kind of that beauty of something as simple as a strand of tinsel, and your ability as a child to notice those things, and you caught the magic. You found it, and you saw it, and you held it. Now, Ben, with your piece, there was something a little similar going on for me, that you captured this feeling of childhood, and of growth. This feeling for me of captain of the traffic boys, and what that meant. This again, kind of these broader horizons, and then this, but there's this very dark incident and this dark background, and so when you told this story, how were you balancing that as you told that story, or was it even something you thought of?
I never thought about balancing it, it was just letting it flow and just remembering it as if it was yesterday, because to this day, I've not gotten over the fact that Mrs. Owens completely abandoned me. My hope was she was going to call Eddie into the office, which she had done with other kids similarly, who also happened to be black. But with this kid, she gave him a pass. I wanted to see her grab him by the ear and lecture him. And I saw that wasn't going to happen, and I lost all faith.
And yet, because that moment when you wad up the flag, you let the flag touch the ground. That's America let you down, metaphorically speaking. And I don't blame you, but you don't seem like a hopeless person to me.
Well, it's real interesting. I had the exact opposite happen to me my freshman year in high school. I had a white basketball coach, and he cut me from the team. And I started to feel similar rejection. But then he told me, "You're not a basketball player, you're a runner. Your talent lies elsewhere." And that changed the course of my life and set me on a path of great success. And it restored my faith, not only in white people, but in adults. Because I thought, when it comes to push and shove, they're going to let you down. And so it came full circle. I saw
Yeah.
the worst and I saw the best. And then it said, that's what the general population is about.
And now you have this gift of bringing that to us through your stories, and we're so grateful for that. Thank you. Now Eleanor, I so I take it then that you're still part of this close knit family, uh, and I was wondering really how your children have run with these traditions and where they fit in with this story.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we still have big family gatherings, and we still laugh and trash talk and tease each other. We don't have as many of the, well, we actually do quite the potluck for Thanksgivings and Christmases too. People bring various kinds of dishes, and we do have Filipino dishes there. We don't do the tinikling anymore.
Oh, I was wondering about that. Yeah.
No, no, we don't do that anymore. But we do enjoy many cultural arts, and all of us partake in dance and comedy and art, plays. So I think we did get a lot of that sense of culture from my mother's dancing, and the idea of bringing culture and beauty into the home. I think we all do that.
Um, just out of curiosity, are there any particular dishes from your childhood? I love cooking, man, so I totally grabbed onto that. Anything that's still hanging on in your family?
Oh yeah, well I make adobo and I make pancit. We still have those things at our family gatherings, and we do a lot of soul food as well. So a lot of those dishes that we grew up with are still part of what we do. And I love cooking. My husband cooks, I cook, my children cook. So
Right on. Right on. So I just have two other quick questions for Gerry and Ben, small ones that kind of grab at me. For Ben, my question to you was, were you, I know you were her favorite, but were you ever brought into Mrs. Owen's office?
Oh no. I was really a good kid. I mean, my mom was very active in the PTA, and my father did not spare the rod. And I knew, you know, they did not need to come up to the school and take time off from their job. And I knew that I had to really be the straight and narrow. And it always, was a good path for me.
Yeah, okay.
So I
Um,
never ran afoul of Mrs. Orange. No.
all right, all
Plus, I
right.
get 25 cents every day.
Yeah, oh, right, that's right. And man, yeah, the cottage cheese and peaches, I could so see that. I mean, that to me when I was a kid seemed such a classic teacher's lunch. I saw that a lot. So, and then Gerry, are you still doing visual art? I'm
Yeah.
a former science student too, so like I'm thinking it's like, is she still drawing the little microscopic creatures or anything? What are you still doing the visual art?
All different kinds of art. I did a lot of biological illustration for years, and as you age, it changes. And I started out doing black and white fine art photography and combining that with some of the biological art. And lately, I've actually been drawing into my own photographs and then doing some other work. I mean, I think all of us have something, like I know Ben is a hiker. Ben is a hiker, runner, and he has an amazing story about running and getting lost in Golden Gate Park that I laughed till I laughed myself silly. And but I think everybody has, I hope everybody has something that they hang on to that, what is the term? Is it flow? Is it FLO? And when I'm in my studio, I don't know how to use the word, but flow is what happens. I just lose myself in time.
Yeah, you get into the zone. I call it getting into the zone.
Well,
Hmm.
what does the flow mean? I think zone sounds better.
You zone everything out. That's what Steph Curry does when he starts hitting those threes
He's in the zone?
in the zone. Now, I
Well,
don't know what flow is. Anybody know what the flow is?
I think of it as the same thing.
I don't know. It's something that, is it the same thing?
Wait a minute, you're
And I guess many of us in here have been in the same class with each other for a long time. So we know each other well, and we've heard each other's stories. And it makes it kind of family-like because we can actually laugh at each other's foibles. I can remember with each one of us, the very first time we told and what was this, it had been 5 years in Kirk's class? 5 years?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's someone Nikki in the chat is suggesting go with the flow is like go with the flow or don't make waves. Um, I found it interesting, Eleanor, that you reacted to that because I do too. The idea of flow, to me, that's I see it as in martial arts, the way energy it flows in martial arts. You want that. Bruce Lee talks about being like the water that flows, but it can also wear away rock and it can take any shape. And I think a dancer has that feel of you need the movements to all connect and flow. But whatever metaphor works for you, Gerry. I mean, and Ben, you're a runner, a hiker, and so you've got your zone. I totally get that one too. My wife's a runner too, and she totally gets that. So last thing. I want to ask, do any of you have any upcoming performances or other work of yours that you'd like to let the audience know about?
I don't have anything. I'm looking for gigs.
Okay, well, we'd love to have you back, all three of you. So keep us in mind. Gerry, Eleanor, anything upcoming or anything of any work, any place we can find your work?
No, I'm trying to learn something that Eleanor's doing, and Eleanor's not having luck with it, is using kind of three-dimensional things while we tell, but it seems hard because I've seen Eleanor do the talk she did today when it just worked. It just flowed.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, and we're all learning how to kind of translate our art to Zoom is difficult for us now. And Eleanor, again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think your piece came off so beautifully in spite of it. By the way, for all of you and everyone in the audience, this will be tonight's performance will be on our YouTube channel. So if you know someone who might enjoy it, they'll be able to watch it there. Or if anyone would care to watch it again, I think I'll probably be one of them. So Eleanor, do you have any other work of yours or anything coming up you'd like to?
At Stagebridge, we have lunchtime storytelling, and I hope to be
Right.
telling some time on one of those Thursday lunchtime storytelling.
All right, all right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing with us. Thank you in the audience for joining us. We'll hope to see you around more. If you can support us through our tip jar, we'd love that. We're glad to have you here. So thank you all for coming, and everyone have a great week.
So
Thank you,
David,
David.
the YouTube channel, what do? You just go to YouTube and type in the Marsh and this date? How do you access?
Probably the easiest way for anyone to find it, I think, would probably be to go to the Marsh's website, themarsh.org, and there are links to the YouTube channel. I find searching within YouTube kind of tricky.
Okay.
So go to the Marsh website and you'll be able to find it easily. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you all so
David.
much for coming.
Thank everybody for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for facilitating, David. Bye-bye.
Good night.